You are now tuned into the Cut Game radio show hosted by Groom City.
It's the Cut Game radio show. We let them know we stay true
To the Cut Game.
Yeah, that's how we do. It's the Cut.
Hey, what's going on? It's Groom City, and you are now tuned in to the Cut Game radio show. And in this particular part of the show, we like to refer to it as Groom City's Top 5s. Now, today, I'm going to be sharing with you my top 5 ways to avoid barber burnout. Yep, that's right, barber burnout. Now, my definition of barber burnout is a state of mental and physical exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged exposure to the mundane task of typical barbering. It occurs when you feel bored and emotionally drained, leaving you unable to meet the constant demands of the barber profession. As the more you expose yourself to the long hours in the same barber environment, day in and day out, you begin to lose the interest or motivation that led you to become a barber in the first place. Barber burnout reduces productivity and saps that positive energy, leaving you feeling resentful towards the shop, the owner, your fellow barbers, and your barber profession, completely changing your perception, causing you to view your career through a dirty lens. Now, some symptoms of barber burnout can include turning down clients, feeling tired or drained when you enter the barbershop or when you begin cutting, developing a sense of failure and loss of motivation, lack of patience with clients, feeling the need to use certain vices to cope with the lack of motivation, feeling the need to detach from your fellow barbers, resentment towards the shop owner and manager, and just, your career just doesn't excite you anymore. Now, if you could relate to any of these symptoms, then you may be experiencing barber burnout. Now, some of you may be thinking that this is just stress, but I'm here to tell you that there is a distinct difference between stress as a barber and barber burnout. Stress as a barber is when the demand for your services is so high that it leaves you unable to physically and mentally handle the needs of the clients seeking your services. Stress, by and large, involves too much, creating a feeling of being overwhelmed. Now, barber burnout, on the other hand, is a feeling of not enough. Barber burnout means you feel empty, depressed, disengaged, undervalued, lacking motivation and drive. In my opinion, barber burnout is one of the main contributing factors to the hate and lack of unity amongst barbers, because barber burnout eventually leads to resentment towards the shop owners, managers, fellow barbers, and the barber profession. So if you experience feeling drained, empty, depressed, resentment, boredom, and lack of motivation, then you may have experienced or are currently experiencing barber burnout. So today I want to share with you my top 5 ways to avoid barber burnout. Now, the first way to avoid barber burnout is time management. Servicing your clients with insufficient amounts of time to make up for your services being underpriced will definitely produce barber burnout. Underpricing the time it takes for your hair services causes you to feel undervalued, affecting your motivation and drive as a barber. Pricing your services based on the desired wage for your time will help you to avoid barber burnout. Knowing that you are getting properly paid for your time will help you to work more efficiently at an efficient pace, eliminating the lack of motivation and the feeling of being undervalued. So, the first way to avoid barber burnout is time management. Managing your time and properly pricing your time. Now, that brings us to the second way to avoid barber burnout. And the second way to avoid barber burnout is waste management. Now, the first way was time management, and the second one is waste management. Now, most of us barbers are self-employed, earning cash money every workday. Now, this can lead to mismanagement of funds on a daily. So sometimes at the end of a work week, you may only be seeing the money that you earn on that Saturday. After months and months of this mismanagement and misappropriating of funds, you can experience barber burnout. Because instead of having that check-to-check feeling, you'll have that living day-to-day feeling and believing that the time you've been spending at the shop is not making ends meet. It's hard to work at a job that you feel is not making ends meet. So to neutralize this, you might try to add more hours to your work week, which further burns you out. So to avoid barber burnout from mismanagement, figure out what you are wasting your time and money on throughout your work week and either reduce it or completely avoid it. So the second way to avoid barber burnout is waste management. Now, that brings us to the third way to avoid barber burnout. And the third way to avoid barber burnout is blending and mixing. If you find yourself feeling drained or bored while at the barbershop, then blending and mixing will help to avoid that. First, try blending your hobbies with your barbering, whether it be photography, graphic designing, cars and motorcycle club, etc. Finding ways to blend your hobbies with your barber career will help you to avoid barber burnout. If you're into photography, blend your photography with barbering by doing photo shoots with your clients, or maybe helping one of your fellow barbers with their portfolio. And if you're involved with car or motorcycle clubs, organize monthly meetups at the barbershop you work at. If you don't really have a hobby that you can blend with your barbering, then you could do a little mixing. Mix some of that off the grid work with some on the grid work. Mixing the two throughout your work week helps you to take control of changing your environment without experiencing a loss in income. Creatively blending and mixing your hobbies and off the grid work will help you avoid the barber burnout that comes from feeling drained and being bored. So, the third way to avoid barber burnout is blending and mixing. Now, that takes us to the fourth way. The fourth way to avoid barber burnout is trade shows. If you find yourself lacking motivation and the inspiration that you once had for barbering, then I recommend going to hair shows, trade shows, mixers, etc. Getting from behind the chair and seeing all of the exciting things that's going on in your industry is motivating. Just the positive energy in the buildings of the trade shows and the hair shows is very powerful. Seeing your fellow barbers educate and perform on stages with excitement pertaining to your craft will only inspire you. Spectating or getting involved with trade shows can introduce you to successful, motivated barbers, helping you to work with purpose. So, the fourth way to avoid barber burnout is hair shows, trade shows, barber battles, etc. Now, that takes us to the fifth way. The fifth way to avoid barber burnout is to set boundaries. Don't overextend yourself. Take at least 2 days off. Be strict with your work hours. Working after hours 6 to 7 days a week would definitely create barber burnout. An ideal barber schedule to prevent barber burnout, in my opinion, is your typical square schedule. 5 days a week, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Something about seeing the sun before you start your day and seeing some sun when you end your day is just a blessing. So, the fifth way to avoid barber burnout is setting boundaries. I would also like to add, please, as barbers, we also need vacations and occasional time off. I didn't feel the need to add this to my top 5, but please take at least 2 weeks off a year, at least. Also, write down your 1-year goals, 3-year goals, and 5-year goals. Working without goals will definitely lead to barber burnout. Daily and weekly goals are also key as well. Now, I just shared my top 5 ways to avoid barber burnout. If you would like to add anything, feel free to comment or DM us at thecutgame or email us at thecutgame@gmail.com. I want you guys to stay motivated. Stay on your jet fuel. That's why I speak on jet fuel. Applying the principles within the top 5s will help you to stay elevated, stay on your jet fuel. Because when you are burnt out as a barber, you are not elevated. It's always best to stay above, Keep your head in the clouds to me is a positive thing. So, I want y'all to stay elevated, stay motivated, stay on your jet fuel. Make sure you tune in every Wednesday to the Cut Game Radio Show. Stay groomed. Peace.
That concludes our show. Please join us next week as we chop up game and share secrets to success on the Cut Game Radio Show.